This week on A to Z Running, runners are often, accurately in my opinion, described as disciplined and dedicated individuals. In some ways, consistency is baked in. In other ways, it is very difficult. Success requires consistency and balance, so we're tackling that subject next.
Welcome back to A to Z Running, where we help runners thrive. I'm Andy.
And I'm Zach. Just a reminder, you can learn more about what we do at AtoZrunning.com and follow us on YouTube, Spotify, and I think we're on Instagram as well.
Sometimes.
Did you hear about the scandal around recent world record marathoner Ruth Chepngetich? Lots of opinions flying around out there. But before we get to that, that's coming later. First, Andy, you are making progress.
Yes, slowly but surely. It's been such a saga, but I'm running probably now more like 5 days a week from the 3 to 4 that I was doing before, and I am able to run further, so that's a good thing too, like longer.
Feeling a little bit stronger.
Yeah, feeling a little stronger, so that's encouraging. I have another race with my friend Janelle and her brother Drew coming up on Wednesday. So exciting things and enjoying moving and doing this thing that I love.
It's really exciting.
It is.
It is at that. And as for me, playtime is almost over. And I've been having a ball, but I'm ready for something different. And that's kind of the way it goes in summer. Maybe next week I'll talk about why summer is playtime for me in running terms. But for now, we'll leave it at that because we've got a lot of fascinating things to discuss today, including our AI trivia segment is back because now Andy and Zach are here at the same time again.
He just wants to beat me. That's all this is.
I do hope to win. I always want to win, but I also just like to play the game. And we also are now going to add in a new element with the segment. Instead of picking a topic ahead of time, we're going to use a random generator to choose it. We chose the list of possible topics. And
by meaning Zach.
Andy can contribute to it as well.
I haven't. Okay.
Not as of yet, but that doesn't mean you can't.
Okay.
And we'll let the Wheel of Fortune pick the topic. And then find out which of us may or may not come out on top and have to pay the penalty. All right. So that's all coming up. But before we get to that, we want to talk to you a little bit about consistency and balance. Andy, do you remember years ago when we discussed this on the podcast, this topic of the rules for realizing your dreams?
I do. Do I remember all the rules? No.
No? Well, you will never realize your dreams because you're not following these rules. I mentioned on the podcast last week when you unfortunately could not be with us. It was a very sad time, but I mustered the energy to still put a smile on my face. And while reflecting on the topic further, wanted to spend some time looking at the history of self-help as a genre. Do you know how much money the self-help industry is worth right now in terms of just the literature?
I have no idea.
$14 billion.
That's a lot.
This is a very lucrative genre. However, couple that with 15,000 new publications under the genre self-help every year.
That's also a lot.
Yeah. So this is, in a sense, the A to Z Running self-help topic. But it's not also because principally what we try to do with this kind of stuff is we try to distill the ideas that everybody seems to be sharing when we interview athletes, when we talk to runners, when we think about running in our own minds. And those ideas count for something too, right? We try to distill them down to what are the things that are the most essential in all of it. And then try to identify how we can do more of that as runners. And if that is just your typical self-help book, so be it.
So be it. Maybe we should contribute one.
One to the 15,000. There's probably going to be 20,000 this year. It just keeps going up. Maybe, but what we're
But
going to do
we're
right
all
now.
on a path to continuous improvement. It makes sense to me.
That is why, right? And since the dawn of time, I mean, the book of Proverbs, it's a self-help book in essence.
Well, maybe not self-help, God help.
Well, right, but like
From God, yeah.
But in principle, like a lot of the Proverbs are like written to my son from the perspective of like father to son, and like so the fatherly advice, that's just self-help by general terms in terms of the genre. And so yeah, and then of course. Add in the spiritual element too. So what we have here now is we have our second installment. And we're not going to try to cover each of the 9 rules separately necessarily because so many of them go hand in glove. I think that's the right term, the right idiom for this concept. They fit very nicely together. And you can't really talk about one of these things without the other ones in various ways. But in the same token, we wanted to spend a little bit more time. The last time we talked about these topics, we just tried to give you a kind of like, here at a high level, here's our 9 that we feel like are really important things. And now we're digging in a little bit deeper, both because we have spent more time talking about these concepts for the last few years. And so we have more that we have learned about and more that we have thought about and more that we have talked to runners about to share here. But also because this is really important stuff. Mm-hmm. So it's worth a little bit of reflection. So installment number 2. Last week we talked about patience. This week we're talking about consistency and balance. And these are the 3 things that we need to be for success.
Yep. I remember that. Yeah.
Right. We need to be patient, be consistent, and be balanced. And under the topic of patience, I gave a definition I thought was a pretty solid definition. And now we get to hear Andy's sounding board if she fully agrees. Patience, by my definition, is the willingness to accept a current undesirable state while working actively toward a future more desirable state.
I like it. I mean, it's not always, patience isn't always in an undesirable state, though. It's not always
I didn't say it has to be undesirable, just you're willing to accept an undesirable state. I think principally that's a necessary perspective, not always a necessary state of existence, but a necessary perspective, because you can't say that you're being patient if you're really enjoying the thing you're doing right now, because it doesn't require patience of you to engage with something that you are fully desirous of.
Okay.
Like I don't have to be patient while I'm winning an Olympic gold medal. I have to be patient while I'm weightlifting that I don't like to do in order to be able to win an Olympic gold medal. I don't know. So I'm not.
What you're saying.
Yeah, I'm not saying that it's not an exclusive definition, but I think the second part is really important, and that's going to contribute to some of our reflection today. That in order for it to be patience and not just resignation, I need to actually have an orientation toward action. Patience isn't just sitting there in the midst of something. It's sitting there with thinking toward a future orientation. Otherwise, again, it wouldn't be patience. It would just be bleh, or something in my mind. So I also talked a little bit about C.S. Lewis and his definition of imagination. That's always a fun thought. But realizing that there is a kind of imaginative process to being patient as well. According to C.S. Lewis, imagination is the thing that makes meaning out of something. And so then Sir Ken Robinson elaborates on that when he talks about how imagination allows us to think about the future and think about the past, which creatures that don't have imagination can't do. So then this is the process for being patient, which is to say envisioning a future different than the present, recognizing why our past activities resulted in our current situation, and understanding how our current activities might help produce that more desirable future. So that's the process. Now, in order to be successful with that, we've got to think about consistency and balance. And that's a good segue into today's focus. Okay, so these two things naturally go together, all three of them, in fact, but it would have taken much too long to talk about all three of them at once, and so we separated patience from these other two. But remembering that active, working toward a more desirable future consideration in our definition of patience, without consistency in that work, it's not very helpful to be patient. Like, it's not very helpful to be patient and say, I'll be fitter later after I've put in the work, and then not do the work consistently.
And also, patience is not waiting for a result to happen inactively. Patience is an active thing. So patience requires then, as you were saying, some sort of imagination, but also a plan, and consistency helps you execute that plan.
The plan has to include consistency, right? It has to be something that is not just isolated.
I do think, though, that patience sometimes is misconstrued to sit back. I'm being patient. I'm sitting back. I'm just, going to ride this out. But that's not what productive patience will do.
Oh, so we're adding a caveat. Okay, I like it. Yeah. It probably requires a qualifier to really, truly be the thing we're trying to describe. So then what place does that consistency have, or what place does balance have in that consistency? And that's key, because consistently doing something that is detrimental to our success is not a virtue. And so when we find consistency in an unbalanced situation, we find eventual detriment. It may not be immediate, but it's always going to result in negative consequences.
I was actually just talking about a great example yesterday with some friends. One of my friends has not just one of them, but the one I was talking to has a very naturally gifted athletic child. And this child hasn't really been wanting to do much this summer in regards to training, but they have some big goals and they're doing the workouts that are on the schedule. But beyond that, they're consistently hunched, looking at things like a phone or even reading a book, which is wonderful. Let's encourage kids to read books. But the consistency of the hunching is something that I have had as a detriment to my physical well-being. So consistently hunched over in a really negative state, like I needed to work on that. And I still am trying to be conscious and working on it. But that is an example of a detrimental, consistent activity that's moving us towards the opposite direction of our goals.
Yeah, very true. Andy has the added difficulty with this posture problem of always being cold. And so the hunching posture, of course, is a kind of like protection of warmth kind of thing too. And that makes it much more difficult. So
thanks for the excuse. I appreciate it.
I'm not planning on turning the heat up anytime soon though. Actually, I don't know how are you still cold in the summer? We keep our house at 76 degrees in the summer.
That's cold.
That's quite warm. All right. Let's talk about it. Consistency. Our definition of what it takes to be successful for runners comes into play here. This is a definition we have constantly been saying, speaking of consistency, since the dawn of A to Z running. What it takes to be successful for runners is consistent implementation of quality training over time.
Simple.
That's it. That's all it takes. And the challenge here is the consistent and the quality part. So it's one of those two or both of those. For most of us, it's just ignorance that I could do better training if I knew more about what to do. And most people can learn that and do over time. And so people really, as runners, tend to develop a good understanding of their sport. And
especially those who are listening to the AtoZrunning podcast.
I'm usually the one who makes the self accolades. So what ends up happening here is the consistent part is just simply very difficult. And we'll talk a lot about that as runners. Why is this so hard? You can see the patience consideration here within this. Over time, I have to be willing to look at this as a long-term commitment, because nothing happens easily in physiological growth. You can see the balance part as well in terms of the quality. So quality training has to be balanced appropriately. But also we can't do long-term anything without consistency. So what about little occasional disruptions? That's not a big problem. Consistency doesn't mean perfection. And that also is a challenge for a lot of runners, where I have to follow the plan and I have to follow exactly what the plan says every single day, or it's not going to be successful. Well, that's not really possible, not fundamentally possible in a healthy state. We'll talk more about that. But what about little frequent disruptions? Just every couple of days I shorten the run because I'm running out of time, or I was looking at my phone for a little too long before I left for the run, and now I don't have quite as much time to run, or I just really feel tired and don't want to do that core workout again. I mean, I didn't do it last week either, or the week before that, but I'm really tired and I don't want to do it again today. Or I know I didn't run yesterday because I wasn't feeling great, and that was probably the right move. But then today, I kind of want to go watch that movie with some friends, and I don't quite have enough time to run, but that's okay. I'll run tomorrow. Those kinds of things, the little frequent disruptions can be significantly detrimental. And so where do we find, this is that balance conversation. I think it is valuable to reflect back. This is one of the key tenets we shared the first time we talked about this topic, which is that consistency can be distilled down to making the good things a regular habit. That's what we mean when we're trying to talk about consistency. Don't be consistent with bad things because that's not going to help you, obviously. But making the good things a regular habit. And there's a lot of layers behind that. When we were discussing on this podcast, I don't remember, was this year, or this was probably even last year? Last year, over a year ago, we were discussing Wise Decisions by Laura and Olson.
Yeah, I think it was a year.
That was a good read. Very convicting. There's just really important things that we should all be thinking about with our decision making. But one of the key tenets of their work was that making decisions takes energy. It actually costs us something to have to make a decision. And good decisions tend to be more difficult than bad ones. And there's a lot of reasons for that, but it's true. It's true. And so when we have to constantly make the decision to do the good thing, it is fatiguing us. It is exhausting, and it becomes harder to be consistent. But when we can turn that decision-making process into a habitual act as opposed to an instantial act, it's just the norm, then we minimize how much deciding we have to do, and therefore are conserving energy. We're making it easier for ourselves. That's huge.
It is. I mean, to be able to get out of bed, know your routine, get that fuel in you and go for a run. I mean, it makes it so much easier than if you are humming and hawing about what you're even going to do. And actually, that's another reason it's really nice to have a plan and not to just be figuring things out day to day. Now, we always suggest being an intuitive runner, so that's taking inventory of how you're feeling and the stimulus that you've had previously and how you're reacting to that. But to have a plan and know what you're going to do the next day is really helpful.
Yeah, and even so, you raised the point about it's more valuable as a runner to develop an intuition for how to respond to my current physiological circumstances, and not even just that, mental and emotional circumstances, everything. But even in that, we encourage runners to develop this sense, not because every day I have to try to figure out, based on how I'm feeling, is this really what I should be doing, or should I be doing something else? But instead, an understanding for when these are the things that are going on, these are the decisions I'm going to make. And so it still is a kind of automated thinking. I don't have to critically examine the situation anew every time. And part of that is because these things are not generally that unique. The way I feel in the circumstance. If I've been doing this long enough, I can generally say I have felt this way before, and I know exactly what's going on here most of the time as a runner.
Or it's like, okay, I don't know exactly how this will go, but you start your routines, you do your routines, all the things you know to do, the automatic things that don't cost you energy, but you know are good for you regardless of whether you go for that run. And then you make the decision after you've done all the warm-ups and all the things that are good, and then you get out the door, and then you're able to make that evaluation more appropriately.
And the final layer of this line of thought is the true value in running by effort, exertionally, and not by anything else, is that oftentimes I don't actually have to make any decisions. My body is doing what it needs, and I'm just exerting the appropriate amount of effort.
Right.
And so there's going to be days where I run quite a bit slower than other days, and I didn't decide to. I just know how much effort I should be giving. And if that means because of how tired my body is or because of some soreness or something like that, if that means that I'm going to be going slower, well, that's just fine. And actually, I don't even know most of the time. I wouldn't even be aware of it. That's also because I don't wear a watch. But
to give you an idea, too, just so that people have like a framework, I know that you don't use pace. I don't use pace anymore. But to give you kind of an idea, like I could go easy and have a genuinely easy effort, and it's like 2 minutes different day to day.
Per mile.
Per mile. 2 minutes different. Which
it's probably not that dramatic right now, but it has been.
Right. It has been. You know, when I'm at high level training and I do a hard effort, and then the next day I'm supposed to run easy, there is, depending on how I recover from that stimulus, there's different range of what easy means for that day and what's the right choice to make.
Yeah. So check out this example. This is a slight pivot in the thinking, but we're talking about ways to automate and reduce some of the obstacles. Many people have criticized, or maybe not criticized, but laughed at me for the fact that since I can recall, I don't have memories that predate this very clearly. I have always eaten the same thing for breakfast, and that breakfast changed recently, but it changed to a different thing that I now eat every single day. Now, why do I do that? Well, one, because I like it, but also more importantly, because I don't ever have to think about breakfast. I wake up in the morning and know exactly what I'm going to eat and how long it takes to prepare it and how much of it I plan to eat if I'm going for a run or if I'm heading off to work and all of that. And I know which dish I'm going to use to prepare. Like, it's the same dish every time, unless it's dirty, which sometimes I wash it and other times I just grab a different one. But
or you mean I wash it?
No, I mean in that moment when I wake up and I find the dish was used for something else. A lot of times it's because there's leftovers in the fridge that are using my oatmeal dish. So I eat oatmeal with chia seeds, with peanut butter, heavy amounts of peanut butter, because the peanut butter oatmeal chia seed combination reduces the GI distress that people often get if they eat just oatmeal before running and things like that. And then just a dab of maple syrup, because maple syrup is delicious, but just a dab of it. And that is the same thing I have eaten every day. That's not a day when something unique is happening. There are a few of those here and there. And Andy does make breakfast for me sometimes and surprises me with something new and different, which is lovely. But that is because then I don't have to think about it ever. And that's probably a good thing, ultimately. Not that everyone has to have the same thing for breakfast every single day. Some people love that and other people hate it. But it does make a difference when you're like me and your mornings are very rarely a relaxing time. I am getting going as fast as I can to the first thing I have to do that day.
That is also one of the advantages of decluttering as well, because then you can find the things you need, you know the things that you use, and there's fewer options available. That's why Aldi, the model of Aldi, is really advantageous for people, because there's fewer options when you're actually shopping, so it takes less time to go shopping at a place that has a reduced amount of possibilities.
It also takes less money.
And also, Aldi does take less money. This is not sponsored by Aldi.
We're not giving the comparison. Okay, so that's a good example, because there's other layers to the reduce decision making, reduce the challenge of having to figure out where is this thing. So like organizational structures, be organized as best as you can in life. Be organized. It reduces stress. There's so many studies about how helpful it is. But here's another one for runners along that vein, which is how do you manage your shoes, your footwear, right? And so I have two systems that I've always used since I started running seriously, maybe in high school. I always have multiple running shoes going, at like different types of shoes for different types of purposes, some of those kinds of things. Sometimes there's more, sometimes there's fewer. But regardless of the setup, the place where I keep my running shoes is some kind of shelf. And every time I wear a pair of shoes, I slide the next ones over all the way to the left and then put the recently worn ones on the right, so that I know the next time I go run, the shoe I'm going to grab is always the one on the left. And therefore, it is always the next in rotation that I intended for it to be. And so I never have to figure out which shoe I'm going to wear. I also never have to look for my shoes because they're always in the same place. Unless I forget to put them away, which, yes, does happen. Andy's looking at me like, yeah, you don't put your shoes away. I do put them away most of the time. But every once in a while I don't, and then I can't find them for like a week. Because who knows where they ended up and who put them away. But that's a part of that, like, be organized, because you're going to reduce the challenges, the obstacles between you and consistency. Okay, let's talk about routines are very difficult to break. So if you have a routine that you were trying to change, it's going to be really hard. And then new routines are super difficult to form and also suffer from what they call behavioral drift, which is just a bane of our existence because we don't know what's happening, and it always happens. Behavioral drift is our tendency toward entropy and chaos. And this is not scientific. I'm just simply describing it that way. Humans have, and I would argue this is because we are a broken and fallen society or creature universe. And this is why this is the case. But whatever your justification, it's true. We tend toward chaos. And so all of our good systems are always breaking down over time and falling out of use or into disuse. And so they call that drift, behavioral drift. It happens with our behavioral habits, and it happens with our structural habits, the things around us. And so we need to anticipate that and know that that's going to be the case. I have this really good habit, but then in 2 or 3 months, I'm going to realize, I'm not actually doing that anymore the way I should. What happened? Well, what happened is behavioral drift, because it's going to happen every time. So stop being surprised by it. Instead, we need to anticipate the need for renewal, renewing our commitments to a thing, renewing our consistencies, renewing our, as we described it earlier, our good things that are regular habits.
I would like to mention, because we talked about the decluttering piece of things, because sometimes we need to make room for consistency. So we talked about like physical things that we have that are cluttered, right? So we have items that are literally in the way, but also we have just mental clutter. So for instance, like if you have apps in your phone that distract you, when you delete those apps, you tend to more productive ones, because most of us are still unfortunately addicted to our phones. So you grab your phone and then you actually check your email, or maybe you text that friend you haven't texted back yet and it's been 3 days and you still like them and you don't want to ghost them. So there's all these things that it helps you channel your energy, which we like to say here. So sometimes it's eliminating mental clutter, and that's one way, because that's digital space. But also sometimes it's making amends. Maybe there's some relational distress. Maybe there are things that you need to discuss with a counselor or work out so that you're able to provide yourself less clutter in your mind and your heart. I know that sounds maybe a little bit hard to grasp, but it does help.
Heart clutter?
Heart clutter.
Is there a medical term for heart clutter? Cholesterol?
Well, I think that you understand the gist of what I'm saying, but I know it's not in regards to running specifically, but at A to Z Running, we want to help runners thrive, and we feel the way that we can best achieve what we'd like to in running is to look at ourselves as a whole person. And once we're able to pull out some of these things that are distracting and keeping us from consistency, then we're able to further embrace what we hope to do in the sport.
And Andy is fully anticipating the next point we're going to make when we talk about balance and the various domains of life. So before we're moving to that, just a quick note about some of our guidelines for runners in terms of consistency. Things that I can help make sure keep me more consistent. One is avoiding multiple days off in a row. And so if you run an every other day schedule, or if you run 7 days a week, regardless of that, you want to try to do your best to not have more than 1 day of like no exercise in a row. The rationale for that is because it delays physiological adaptations. It also makes it harder for you to build a physiological foundation. It takes longer, and it's a slower increase. And so what that amounts to is there's always going to be situations where it's necessary, whatever that may be. Illnesses, injuries, schedule and life conflicts that may arise. But when I can control it, so what happens is if I have to take a day off, an unanticipated day off, then I'm trying hard to make sure that the next day or the day before that I am exercising. And it might not be running because, there's lots of reasons why you might not be able to run. And so if you're cross training, if you're doing a core workout, if, whatever the thing, but, that's the mindset, the general mindset that is very helpful. And then also anticipate predictable disruptions and plan ahead, because this is the most regrettable thing as a runner is I could have done everything, but I just didn't think about what my schedule was going to be like until suddenly it hit, and now I actually couldn't fit it in. Yeah. But if I would have been thinking about it yesterday, then it would have been no problem. I would have made a way.
I feel like my athletes are really good at letting me know when they're going to go on a trip or when they have things that are planned, and then we're often able to prioritize what needs to happen within the week and also what's most beneficial to travel. So for instance, like we prioritize a long run. So it's also usually advantageous for seeing things on foot, like being able to see more sights if you're in a cool place. But I think it's really helpful to know that because travel days impede and also like people's fatigue. So it's nice to be able to have like, okay, here are the things that I would love for you to get in while you're there. You choose the days that you do it within the flexibility of your travel companions.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. And also just make everyone you are with run also, and then you can all do everything together. That's very good.
Yeah, that always works.
Last note, which is something we're going to spend more time on and a different one of the 9 rules, but build accountability into the regular habit. And so this is a way to help prevent behavioral drift. It is, in fact, the most effective way to reduce behavioral drift as a negative force. And that is to then have a system for saying to yourself and others, someone who is not you, because you cannot truly hold yourself accountable objectively. It's not possible because we are far too biased in our own favors. But what you can do is you can say, here's the thing that I intend. And things like journaling or recording, like training log types of things. Not Strava. Strava's not Strava. But like a training log, you can write it on a piece of paper. That'd be wonderful. But things that here's what I intend, and now I can see that I did it or not. And then have someone with whom you are sharing those kinds of things, so that I am not just doing this in isolation and then forgiving myself for falling out of my important good habits. We'll talk more about that later. So in wrapping up this topic, just then reflecting on the areas of balance that are really going to make the biggest difference. Too much of a good thing is not awesome, obviously, but when we fall out of balance, it's usually because we don't have enough of the good things and we have too much of the not good things. So it's either an unbalance of priorities, or I'm just not doing what and where should be.
In order to talk about the element of balance, I think it's important to first caveat that when we're talking about balance, it's not in the sense of like doing a lot of running and doing a lot of other things in addition to that and balancing it all out. It is different than that. I think it was Sarah Vaughn that had spoken to how when she is in deep training, her life is not balanced in the sense of like, okay, my career is balanced with my running. No, I tip towards my running during my training cycle. So other hobbies might not be balanced during more intense times of training.
We'll talk about that because it is a question of balance in terms of long-term perspective and balance in terms of the current moment and what that means for my situation. But I think the premise is important here, which is that we are finite creatures. And so everything has a maximum limit. And that's our energy, our focus, our prioritization, our time, naturally. All these things have a maximum limit. And so what I have to do is I have to be aware of what is that limit and how much of that limit can this particular thing occupy in this moment. And that's where there's some wiggle room. You can make adjustments, but you can only make so many adjustments. We'll bounce back and forth here for a second because as Andy, you were sharing it, I think it's important to note that the prioritization is the key to having a good balance. I need to know what things are most important and in what order in my life. We're talking like faith, family, career. Like where do these things fall in levels of importance, and then where does running fit in that hierarchy? Because the reality is it's likely never higher than 4th or 5th in almost any human's list of most important things in my life. And unless you're a professional runner, then it can be career. And so that's special. Good for you. But for the rest of us, so what that means is, as Andy is saying, I can't elevate running above family. It is not an option because my life will not be healthy. And I'm telling this to you right now, if you're listening. If you try to put running above family, you will suffer, and everyone else will suffer. Don't do it. But there are days where I might say, I'm sorry, family, I can't do that thing because of this run. And that's not the same thing as elevating running above my family, generally speaking. But it does allow for this opportunity to say, how can today look that follows the right priorities? And then because of that, what should tomorrow look like? Or what can this season of training look like? And what does that mean for next season of training? And another good example of that is we coach a lot of runners who both the runner and the runner's spouse run. And sometimes we coach both of them, in fact, which is a blast. Did you know AtoZrunning offers a household discount? So if you and other family members in your household are coaching subscribers for AtoZrunning, you all get a discount.
Pretty good deal.
It's a pretty good deal. Now, aside from that, a little sales pitch for you. A lot of times what runners will tell us is it's like, this is my long run day and this day is my spouse's long run day. And so that's, part of that, like, today I'm going to be less involved in the family things for the first half of the day. And tomorrow my spouse is less involved in the family things. And that's a way to achieve that kind of balance. But then in a similar sense, a lot of times it also is, this season I'm training for this marathon. And so my family is kind of supporting me in this a little bit more. And next season my spouse is going to train for a different marathon.
Or they're doing something else, a different hobby.
Yeah,
maybe
right,
it's not running.
I'm not saying. I'm just saying that because a lot of the examples that have come up with us are like two runners or a runner and a cyclist, or like things that take a lot of time. And these are exercises that take time, especially cycling, as it were, quite a bit more than running, because you can ride for 6-8 hours every Saturday if you want to. So what this means then for me is I need to be clear on my priorities, my life priorities, and then I need to understand what that means for the time that's available to me in a given day. And so, as Andy noted, she said the word hobbies earlier. In fact, if you really want to take running seriously and you have a family and you have a career and you're involved in some other important things, you're not going to have a ton of time for many other things. You're just not. So what are you willing to diminish so that you have the time to do the running thing to the degree that you want to do it? And now we're talking about some of the unnecessary fun things in life, like the shows that I like to watch. Binge watching TV shows is unhealthy on so many levels. It also makes us really unproductive and regret it, because it's like, I wish I would have done this thing, but I spent 3 hours watching a show on Friday instead. Don't do that. Just don't do it. There's lots of things you can achieve when you could have been doing it instead
or
of
like
watching.
Colleen Quigley, if you are in a season that running and training is more important to you, you only let yourself watch it when you're cross training.
Yeah, well, you reward yourself for the cross training. I've talked with a number of runners who that's the only way that the treadmill can be tolerable, and it's like I save my shows for the winter when I'm going to be on the treadmill a lot. And it's like, I get to catch up now on this season that I didn't watch and everyone else did. And it's kind of funny. But it's true, actually. That is not a bad way.
But it is okay to rest. I feel like in this conversation, we don't want to miss the point of rest too. And spending quality time with your partner, might be sitting next to them and watching a show once a week.
Could be. However, studies seem to indicate that digital media is significantly less effective at providing that kind of rest that we're describing than other kinds of things. So not to say you shouldn't watch a show together, but have the greater the need for rest, the more you should do something other than watch a show together.
And because this is connected, I'll mention it too. My sons were in a production at church and they wanted to play video games during their rest time, and that's not restful. Looking at social media, looking at your phone, scrolling TikTok, whatever it is that you're looking at, videos, YouTube, that's actually not restful. And neither is playing video games.
It's true.
So just remember, when you're drawn to that because it's easy consumption and gives you that hit of dopamine, it's actually not a restful thing to do, even though you're laying down on the couch or your body is maybe in a more rested position. You're not. Your heart rate's up, your mind is working. You probably just need to close your eyes and have like an old school nap.
Or even just an old school rest.
Or read a book or whatever.
Just lay and enjoy the sounds of nature if you can hear them. So that's good. That's good thinking. We might sound like we're lecturing you all a little bit here right now, but we are not.
We're talking to ourselves when we're speaking
Right.
about these kinds of prioritizations.
Right. And you may have even overheard some of the coded language that Andy and I have been saying back and forth to each other. That we try not to be cynical and critical here. But it's difficult to find balance. And so this is where we get into, there's layers to channeling our energy appropriately. There's the physical and physiological. It is more taxing to exert higher effort and more taxing to exert higher volume. We need a balance of that. Too much high effort over a short period of time is going to cause us problems. And so we balance volume by doing some runs longer and some runs shorter. We balance effort by doing some at higher efforts and some at lower efforts. And we do that on a regular basis. When the body's not ready for something, both in terms of volume and intensity, then we don't do it, or at least not in that way. And that allows us to give the body what it is able to handle when it's able to handle it for adaptability.
And that's a really practical thing. It sounds maybe high echelon of thinking and training, but it's like so incredibly practical, especially for someone like me that has gone through some serious physical stuff, with my surgeries and whatnot. If you're not ready, if your structure is not ready to be able to stand the training that you want to do, but you have maybe enough athletic ability / you just are able to aerobically, like you've been able to maintain some level of it without running, it is a terrible imbalance that can cause a lot of problems because you don't have the structure to support the running you want to do. So you got to get everything strong and ready to go before piling.
Yeah, that is a true thing. And then what about the mental and emotional side of our energy channeling? Running can put significant stress on the rest of the day. So like I can't fit it all in. I might be late for this thing. It becomes a burden to something else in my day. That's a problem. And running can also provide mental emotional release or outlet. It can be an asset to me. And so sometimes it's like, I feel like I don't hardly have time for anything. And so going for the run helps me calm and settle, that kind of sense. Remember the comment last week, actually, Andy, I was going to talk to you about this after I stumbled upon it and forgot to. But I can't remember what the phrase is even right now, but the hurry sickness that is epidemic in our current Western society, where everything's like this sense of I have to hurry, I have to rush, and yet most of that is artificially imposed. Like it's not coming from outside. It's just me feeling the need to rush and hurry, and that is super duper stressful on my mind and heart. And so a lot of times running for people, it can be a way to slow all of that down, because now you're just kind of stuck in a very therapeutic physiological release.
I have 2 comments about this. One is that when you are rushing, you might not be doing your pre-run routine. So I have tactics with my athletes to help us do the things we need to do to stay healthy. And I'm going to mention them here now because I do think it's helpful to think things through this way, because we are so data driven in this culture that we have, and we are hooked up to all the things. Sometimes it's really hard for people to be able to sacrifice a part of their run if they have time constraints in order to do a proper warm-up. So I say let your proper warm-up be part of your time that's part of your run. So like do your drills. I'd rather you, in prioritization and balance, I'd rather you do your drills. I'd rather you get your pre-run warm-ups in than get all the minutes for your run. Because if you're going to have to choose, but guess what happens a lot of times? They do have the extra time. So they do their pre-run and they get their full run in. So, but that feeling of rush, that feeling like I got to get to my run right now, is so incredibly, what would you say, potent? It's incredibly potent, that feeling. So I think it's important to be able to prioritize and kind of even trick your mind. But speaking of the tricking your mind piece of it, this is not a trick of mine, but rather a state of mind. When Zach said having it be something that serves you as a de-stressor versus something I have to do that's interrupting the rest of my day and causing stress, oftentimes that really is just a framework. So you have the choice and the option to frame it in such a way that you come into it with more gratitude and get more from it, and it becomes a place of healthful and helpful healing, plus getting a better stimulus because you're doing it more properly.
True that. The challenge is it's rarely ever just one or the other side of that. It's usually a little bit of both. And so the running feels like it's putting some stress on my life, but it's also a release in some sense. And I think what it comes down to is we have to recognize patterns. We have to identify patterns. We'll talk about that in a moment. So the last of these kind of areas of balance that we're describing is spiritual. And so we think about what does it mean for running's contribution to my current state of existence. And you could use the word existential here too. And this is where the value of things like time for prayer or meditation or both, and time to time to reflect and process life. And so there's a mental and emotional component to that. I would argue there's also a spiritual component to that, where I am trying to orient myself toward something higher and someone higher, as it were. And in doing that, running can be a very positive contribution to that, because, as mentioned, it's a forced stillness of the mind. The detriment here is that if I am always running with something in my ears, it doesn't quite allow me to be as still in mind. And there's times when that is probably okay, and there's times when that is not a good thing. I need to keep the headphones out, and I need to allow that stillness.
As part of that, we talk about how we train our minds for race day as well. So if you're wanting to start small, like let's say you listen to music most of the time, you run distracted most of the time, or you have somebody with you, a friend who you're talking to, start with maybe your harder efforts, and because they're usually shorter in comparison to the long, easy stuff, and just challenge yourself to be with your thoughts and try to figure out how you can be productive in how you speak with yourself, or if you're meditating, what you're thinking about and being intentional with that, or if you're praying, being intentional about that time. Whatever it is, be more intentional. Don't just let it happen to you. But you can start small. It doesn't need to be like all of a sudden now you're running without your headphones. Choose a couple days a week that you start with. And I would recommend the harder efforts, because then you can also do better with being in tune with what your body is feeling.
Yeah, it can depend. It can be very tricky, right? Because higher effort requires greater focus to maintain the appropriate amount of exertion. And so for a lot of people, the higher efforts tend to be times when it is very helpful, as Andy said, it's very helpful to not have distractions so that I can continue to condition a better intuition. But also it tends to be less
harder, right?
Of a thoughtful time.
Yes. So I guess that's another piece of it, because a lot of times people like to listen to music because it can really help you like stay in it. And I understand.
Feel amped.
Or like purposefully distract yourself because you're feeling uncomfortable. But I do think it's really important in training to be with that and to speak to it, and to have things that you are able to tell yourself that help you have a better mental state. So it's all part of, in my opinion, it's all part of how you become a better runner, and that's being able to engage with yourself mentally.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. These are good things. I guess to wrap it up, it starts with being able to identify a reasonable routine that is based around the most predictable pattern for life. And then in terms of ordering those priorities, running is a way to help improve upon the other priorities in life, not just a separate instantial thing. And so when that's where you think about using that time, if instead of putting headphones in, I can use that time to think about my schedule and all the business that I have going on, and really feel like I finished that run knowing what the schedule entails and being confident in I know what's going on. And also it's a time where I can process something difficult that's happening relationally. It's a time where all these kinds of things. In order to achieve that end well, I need to base the time I'm spending running around that pattern, that life pattern. And so you start with this is the most predictable routine, and so I can plan my running accordingly. But then I also need to be ready to adjust, because the reality is that nothing ever happens according to plan perfectly. And in being ready to adjust, also being willing to adjust,
which helps you be consistent. Yes,
because if I'm too inflexible, I'm going to break far more easily than the bending that I can do when I am willing. And so in the same sense, we can't be fatalistic, because that's it was hard this week. I didn't fit it all in. woe is me, this is never going to work. How am I going to find the time for this? I need to make the adjustments, find that most reasonable routine. Maybe I was a little too ambitious last week, and that's why it was so difficult. This week, I might adjust that slightly to find a routine that's a little bit more fitting, but then I can always adjust it again the next week after that and reevaluate as needed.
Mm-hmm. And speaking from someone who has not been able to be consistent due to some serious injuries in the past 5 years, just know that when you're coming back to it, it is important to take it one step at a time and not get too caught up with looking ahead. I know part of it in your imagination, right? We're talking about where we want to see ourselves go and having the patience to get there. But I think that it's really important to imagine the kind of health you want, the kind of things that you want running to give to you. And as we talk about balance, I think that that's also an important piece of it. What do you want running to give to you? Because we shouldn't be pouring all this energy and effort into running with it being drudgery. So what gifts does it have for you? Because I'm pretty sure there's going to be some if you look hard. So
running is an end itself, Andy.
It's wonderful.
It doesn't need to give anything to you because it is its own gift.
It is a gift. It is definitely a gift. But as I think through all of this and how, we talk about consistency, it can actually make my stomach turn a little bit because I'm like, but I've had years of issues. And I know that many of you probably have felt that way as well. Don't be discouraged. Tomorrow's a new day, and step by step, we continue to be consistent to build on strength. And there is no shame in whatever lack of consistency there was in the past. Move forward, and I hope they can find some good things, some gifts in running.
See, that's why we have Andy here at AtoZrunning, because otherwise no one would ever say anything encouraging on this show. Thank you, Andy. Yes, very truly. And what we have here at this point is 30% of our rules for realizing, actually 33.3 repeating percent of rules for realizing your dreams, because those are the three things you need to be. You need to be patient. You need to be consistent. We need to be balanced. And next week, we're going to talk about some of the things we need to get. But before we do that, we got to update you on some of the interesting happenings in the world of running. First up, a quick update from A to Z runners. At Ellie's Race 5K, Michael ran a personal best 5K and third in his age group.
Woo!
Nicely done, Michael.
Way to go, Michael.
It's very exciting. And more where that comes from, I hear. So here we go. All right, let's talk about the London Diamond League. We love track. Track is thrilling and exciting and lots of fun. Mm-hmm. And this was one of the best of the year so far.
It was, and it kind of snuck up on me for some reason. It wasn't as much on my radar as the other ones until
that's because
it was happening.
I didn't tell you, hey, Diamond League London is happening. We should watch it.
Yeah. So let's start with the 800-meter women's race. And I was excited to see that one of my favorites, Laura Muir, towed the line. And although she wasn't a factor for this race because she's not sharp yet, whatever, I was just happy to see her there because she is so gritty and so awesome.
She might never be a factor again at the global stage, but I don't know. She has been dealing with some things. And,
but last year she was amazing. So I feel like everyone has their ups and downs, and she might just be on her way back up. It was fast racing. So that's probably why it was harder for her to hang.
Yeah, running too flat in the 800 is not bad, but it was also last place. So this is just as we continue to say, these races are so thrilling right now. And the women's 800 is another one of those events where you don't know who's going to win. Mm-hmm. You just have no idea. And so we got yet another victor that was not one of the common victors yet this season, in the likes of Georgia Hunter-Bell from Great Britain. Mm-hmm. And actually, it was a strong move by USA's Addie Wiley that really kind of like threw the race open and you're watching it thinking something new is happening. This is not the predictable result. But then Hunter Bell had she just looked like every inch of the Olympic medalist that she is in this race.
And it was the announcers that informed me that Georgia Hunter Bell's favorite event is the 800-meter run, and she's a medalist in the 1500.
Yeah.
So people expected that she would focus towards that, but now it's looking like maybe she'd like to throw her hat in both rings and see what she can do, possibly. But obviously she's a fabulous 800-meter runner too, so...
Well, I can tell you she's probably making a tactical choice if she goes with the 800 as the primary focus, because that 1500 is nutty. It is crazy right now.
We have Faith Kipyegon.
You know you're not going to win, right? So if you're not Faith Kipyegon, no one expects to beat her at this point. It's an inevitability. The reality is
Jess Hall.
Yeah, well, Jess Hall knows that she's one of the greatest runners of all time and still doesn't think she can beat Faith Kipyegon, it seems like. No, actually, that's not true. She's the only one who seems to try to beat her in races. Everyone else just lets her do her own thing. But that's it. So you've got Faith Kipyegon, who wins all of it. You've got Jess Hall, who is probably going to be in second most of the time. And then depending on what Gudaf Sigay does, depending about Daribe Wilteji, who is likely going to be another favorite for the medal come World Championships. So Georgia Hunter Bell is looking at this field and she's saying, this is the hardest and deepest women's 1500-meter field of all time. Why don't I run the 800 instead?
Well, if Athing Mo and Keely Hodgkinson and Laura Muir aren't on their A game.
Well, yeah. So Mary Mora has been off this season. I believe she's struggling with some kind of injury.
But she has run a couple solid races. She's had a Diamond League
She's
win.
been good, but she's been very up and down. And they have talked about an injury that she's been dealing with. Keely Hodgkinson still is not back yet. We haven't
seen her at all.
No, she's had a significant injury. She has not raced yet. Athing Mo, I don't know what to say. I'm not going to say anything yet. But the point is, the big time favorites in the women's 800 are non-factor completely at the moment. And so, it's wide open. It's wide open. So 156.74 was good for the win. Wiley in second ran 157.43. That was a good strong day for her. In fact, Addie Wiley of the USA is the Diamond League points leader in the women's 800.
Zach told me that and I was shocked.
She hasn't won a single one.
Yeah, she hasn't won any of them, but she's been present and good.
Yep.
Consistently good.
Consistently there.
And to be consistently good with Diamond League, you're running fast. I mean, it's no longer are the days where you can run a 2-minute 800-meter run and be in contention. That's no longer a thing.
Laura Muir found that out in this race when she was in last place with 2 flat.
That used to win sometimes.
It still can, like in a low-key indoor race or something, but
that used to be like the number, right? Like if you were a sub 2-minute 800-meter runner as a woman, you were in contention. But now it's like you got to be like 56, 57.
Yeah, but I mean, the first women's marathon world championship was like, what, 240 for the win?
Yeah, now it's
just the way this game works, Andy. So
18.
Good fast running. Claudia Hollingsworth, the young Australian, ran a personal best, 158.0, and so that's always kind of fun because it's like, all right, she's no longer a teenage sensation. Now she's turning 20, and so she's not a U20 runner anymore, but she's continuing to improve, and so always fun to see. In the 1 mile for the women, next event up, more crazy racing. This was actually a lot of fun because we knew when we were watching it, we knew what was going on, even if the announcers took a moment to recall the reality of this, but they knew as well. But it's one of those where when you understand the players and the sport, then you have a very different experience watching a race like this than someone else might. So they have this race paced out. This is the women's 1 mile race, which is a very uncommon event in outdoor track and field. And so you'll
globally.
You'll see how it produces, well, even in the United States, the 1 mile outdoors is not run very often. Lots of national records, lots of personal best times, and that happens a lot with races like this. But what happened was you have the pacers set at a very fast pace. It was a very respectable pace. And yet Gudaf Sige wanted nothing to do with that. She took off in almost a sprint, way ahead of the pacers, way ahead of the pace lights. In fact, she came through 400 meters in 59 seconds.
Woo.
Which was, I think, about the same thing that the women in the 800 came through.
They were saying that was what they came through for the breaking 4 attempt with Faith Kipyegon. So
then people are like, oh, is she trying to run sub 4, trying to do that thing? No, she's not. Because Gudaf Sige, this is where you have to know the backstory. Gudaf Sige likes to positive split miles. She has said this in the past, and she's in fact actually structured races so that she deliberately positive splits the race. She feels that is her best formula for her fastest race. And this actually showed that once again, because Gudaf Sige ran an Ethiopian national record and a personal best time, number 2 all time in the world. We'll talk about that in just a moment. So Sige goes off like lightning. She actually had company, Burka Hilam, which she is an Ethiopian as well, countrywoman. They talked about as though they are training partners.
They were saying that they were training partners.
I don't really know anything about that specifically, but that means that Burka Hilam probably knew what Gudaf Sige was planning to do.
And tried it too, apparently.
I guess, but I don't know why. Because that wasn't really a good idea for her. She ended up 10th place. She didn't have her best day.
Yeah.
So,
I don't think, I think that method you kind of that has to be your thing, because otherwise you'll burn your legs out.
Which kind of happened. But what ends up happening instead is 800 meters into the race, when Sige is slowing down, according to plan, most likely, Jessica Hull, the threat from down under, is storming ahead and catches Sige with a lap to go. And you can see Gudaf Sige looks like, this is hurting, I'm struggling. And Hull looks like she's just ready to demolish everything. Like, I'm going to explode the world right now. But the crazy part is, Sige wasn't done. So when Hull gets up with her, Sige starts trying to accelerate and prevents Hull from ever feeling like she has a full contact, like I've caught her. And that's huge. That is a big thing.
Yeah,
because
she caught, but was 2 or 3 steps behind.
Right. So she never quite got to latch on. And so Sige keeps that distance. And when it comes down to then the last 200 meters, the final kick, the straightaway, Hull just never quite got to her. And so Sige just kind of edges away, and ends up taking the race in 4:11.88, which is faster than everyone except for Faith Kipyegon. Mm-hmm. No surprise there. Sige just had a great day. Ethiopian record. Hull finishing in second place in 4:13, runs the number 6 all-time performance in the world, Oceania and Australian record for her.
Which, let's remember this, though, because I think that this also helps put how good this race was for Hull in perspective, because she's run with Faith Kipyegon in these world records.
Yeah, but I don't think she was ever in a world record attempt in the mile. I think it was always 1500s.
I think she was in that last one.
The 4:07?
Yeah.
I don't know.
I think she was. I'm pretty sure she was.
I know she was pacing in the Nike project. Do you remember that?
But that's not what I'm talking about. I'm talking about Hull's personal best. She just ran a personal best.
Yeah, she did.
And she's run. I'm fairly certain she was in that last Faith Kipyegon's world record.
Yeah, she's just in her prime right now. Yeah. Just crushing it day in, day out. It's just add another Australian record for Hull. It was USA's Sinclair Johnson, I think, that surprised me the most, running a new U.S. and North American record by 0.03 of a second. Just edged ahead of the previous record to run 4:16.32. Johnson, who had a stretch where she was like the heir apparent to women's miler legacies in the United States, and then just had a stretch of time where she just wasn't quite there.
Well, she got injured. So this was back for the 2020 Olympics. Was that right?
Yeah, the 21 delay.
I don't know, but it wasn't good for her.
Yep.
And so her timing was off too then for the 2024. So for Paris. And so she's just been and she was still good. I remember she had a good indoor season.
She's always been good.
But it didn't all come together for her. So, but now it looks like it is.
Yeah, she's been running great the last few now races, outings, and just looking better and better. And this is the right time to do it. Keep the records going here, though, because we've got an Italian record for Marta Zanoni in 4:17. We've got a French record for Agatha Guillemot in 4:19, a Portuguese record for Salome Afonso in 4:19, and a Spanish record for Esther Guerrero in 4:20.
Wow.
That is a lot of records in one race.
Wow.
Only 3 of the 16 finishers did not run personal best times.
That's what I was wowing about.
Yeah. Wow.
Wow. Amazing.
How about the women in the 5,000?
I mean, all these races were really good. It must have been a perfect night for this, or we're just seeing things starting to really ramp up for runners as they're sharpening more and more. So, wow. Again, 16 women finished the race, and the slowest time was 14:47.
The slowest.
What?
Yep.
That is so fast.
Yep. 13 of those 16 were under 14:40. In fact, all in the 14:30s. No one ran faster than 14:30. But 13 women ran between 14:30 and 14:39.
These are the times we're living in, folks.
It's incredible. It is really incredible. And they're from all over the place. We're not just talking about, 10 Kenyans like it used to be. It's everyone's running fast everywhere in the world, and it's really exciting. It was the young Ethiopians champing at the bit here and wanting to make a race out of it. The pacing was set to go fast, but after the pacers dropped out, whether because it was getting to them a little bit or just wanting to compete and not wanting anyone to do too much of the work, it started to slow a bit. And so because of that, what you had early on were 2 groups forming, and the first group going out faster, the second group hanging back a bit, but they ended up merging again near the end of the race because of the slower second half pace, and it just made for very exciting racing. Mm-hmm. So up front, you had the duel between some of the young Ethiopians. These Ethiopian women, they're all young and they're all super duper fast, and it's very intimidating for everybody in the world. Medina Aisa with the victory over Fantaye Belaina, and that specifically in 14:30, and between the two of them only a second apart. So then the second pack in its lead-up charge was pushed by Georgia Griffith of Australia, who then proceeded to have a great day, but was overshadowed by countrywoman Rose Davies, who ran a new Oceania Australian record in 14:31 for third place. Just an incredible effort. And there was one other record in the race, Jana Van Lent, with a new Belgian record, 14:42.
Wow. 9 of the 16 women had a personal best time.
Which the mile is understandable because it's a rarer event to compete in. But for a 5,000, that's wild.
Yeah. It's a highly run race globally. Surprising.
In the 800, who can beat Emmanuel Wanyonyi? Who can do it? Because we need to see if someone can. We want to know. And Marco Arap played his cards perfectly. Marco Arap of Canada has spent a lot of time finishing second to Emmanuel Wanyonyi. He played his cards perfectly until the last 100 meters when Arap drifted out off the inside lane and gave Wanyonyi an express lane to the finish right up the inside. So Arap goes around him. Perfect tactics, flawlessly executed. With 200 to go, he takes the lead. He's charging ahead. Wanyonyi is struggling to keep up. And then with 100 to go, we've got runners on the outside, and we've got Wanyonyi right behind Arap, so he's got nowhere to go. But then Arap drifts out, and Wanyonyi takes the inside. He never would have won that race if Arap didn't just hold the line.
This is wild because this keeps happening.
Like every single week.
It's
every
crazy.
Single week.
Why does this keep happening? They all need a Rod Worley in their life saying to hold the line.
Stay on the inside. Do not
hold your
drift.
line.
So Wanyonyi won the race yet again. And that one he shouldn't have won. He certainly, did the work for it, but he shouldn't have won it if Arap would have been more sound tactics. So Wanyonyi 142 flat, a new Diamond League, London Diamond League record. He's run under 142 so many times. This is 142 flat, but incredible. He, by the way, is the points leader in the event, and he has almost double the points of second place
Because he keeps winning.
because he wins all the time, which, by the way, is a tie between USA's Josh Hoey and Bryce Hoppel.
Oh, cool.
Yeah, they're tied for second. Great Britain's Max Bergen was finishing like a boss and, in fact, would have caught Marco Arop if he had 10 more meters. He was flying down the line, and he was rewarded with a personal best for it at that. And then Bryce Hoppel to make it 4 men under 143. Just another strong day for Hoppel. But it was USA's Donovan Brazier who really caught our attention ahead of this race, making his Diamond League return. When was the last time? When was the last time Donovan Brazier raced in the Diamond League? 2 years?
I mean, like
3 years?
2023 maybe.
Yeah. And he looked great. He ran 1:43.08, and so that's faster than his last one, which was faster than his season opener. I mean, Brazier's coming back. He's coming back.
I mean, 143, that's more than legit. That's like really good.
He's coming back. DB is on the scene. And also, I think it just tells that he's feeling confident enough to race at the Diamond League, to travel for a big race like that. He knows that he's getting into better shape. That's a good sign. Good sign.
Mm-hmm.
Last one, men's 1,500 meters.
Not without its drama.
Oh my goodness. So if the other ones were exciting because they were just like really exciting races, this was exciting tragically. It was wild. So we have a thriller of a race already in the outset. We've got Josh Kerr, Fanuel Koech, the youngster from Kenya, who is just storming onto the scene. We've got Cam Myers, who is still waiting for that like breakout moment where he's a clear, definitive force in the mile. Like, he's 18 still, but he well, maybe he's 19 now, but he's still very young, and yet hasn't
had fun yet.
He's always there, but he's never right there. And so many others. And,
he's hard on himself. He's hard on himself.
I don't
It
know.
looks well from the interviews, and I'd say he's probably hard on himself.
But the problem here is, after leading a significant chunk of the race, George Mills, who just really wanted to drive as hard as he could from the get-go, gets passed by Josh Kerr and Fanuel Koech in the last 200.
Well, on either side of him.
They split him.
They swallowed him.
So what happens is George Mills, and this is not in the final kick, so it's a little bit more forgivable, but he's not quite hugging the line. And Josh Kerr starts going around him on his right shoulder, and he drifts out a slight bit, which happens. That's kind of a natural thing that people do when someone starts passing them, is they start drifting toward that person a bit. And when he does, Fanuel Koech passes him on the inside suddenly, and it gave Koech a straight line to the front, which was huge for his race, because otherwise he might have been boxed in fact. So then Mills, in keeping up with these guys, starts trying to move back into the inside line, and Cam Myers was coming up behind him, and so Myers clips Mills' heel, and Mills goes down hard, takes Cam Myers with him. Also, the German runner, Rupert, I think his name's slipping my mind suddenly, takes him down too and disrupts the whole rest of the race. Like, everyone behind them either had to dodge, jump, or fell. And so you essentially have a two-man race now. Like, the last 150 meters was just Josh Kerr and Fanuel Koech, and everybody else was gone. And I tell you what, Fanuel Koech had a seriously fast last 100 meters. Like, he made Kerr look like Kerr is not a kicker, and that's really saying something. So Koech took the victory, his first Diamond League win, and another super fast time, 3:28.82. In fact, this time is basically tied with the previous World Under 20 record, which he already broke the last time he was out. So he's essentially run twice. He's run the World Under 20 record twice now. Just outstanding young talent.
Impressive.
Yeah, but sorry to hear it for the rest of the race,
Right.
who fell down. Side note, Ethiopia's Seleman Barega stepped down for some speed work here. He is most known for his 10,000 meter prowess, and certainly a 5,000 meter runner. But I wonder, because Grant Fisher just ran that fast mile, 3:48, I wonder if Barega did it in mirroring Grant Fisher's move, or if this was the plan all along. Barega ran fast, 3:32. No, it's no slouch. But also it's like, are they worried about Fisher? Are they worried about Fisher? I think they are.
Well, they should be.
They should be, because he is the boss. All right. that's about it for the Diamond League. But we've got more of those coming. This is an exciting time of the year. One other quick result, just a side note, Winfred Yavi in the steeple just ran 8:49 by herself.
What?
She won the race by 30 seconds.
That's silly.
Yep.
It's so good that it's a little silly.
A little bit. Let's talk about Ruth Chepngetich. We teased it in the introduction. It's not good.
I'm just sad. I'm
not
sad because you want to give people the benefit of the doubt when there's something like really cool that happens in the world record scene. So if you see a really fast world record, it's like you want to celebrate, but whenever there's huge jumps in world records, there's always some level of suspicion. And so I don't love that. No one loves that it was cheated for. Most likely, because I guess we don't really know for sure, and that's
so
not
what's
part
the
of the
story?
conversation.
Well,
Yeah,
give
tell
the
me
news.
the story.
Give the news. So provisional suspension for a masking agent is the conclusion. Chepngetich has been suspended for 2 years. It is provisional because the window is open currently for her to appeal, or even for the Athletics Integrity Unit to appeal the decision themselves. But what it amounts to is she had in her system a significant amount of a kind of diuretic that has the capacity to mask other banned substances.
It was a lot more, like 18 times more?
190 times more than the legal limit.
Right.
That cannot happen by accident. Like, there's a serious quantity of this stuff. And it was an out-of-competition test, which is even more suspect. Like, she didn't know she was going to be tested, and so she, had clearly taken a recent dose of whatever this is stuff. And it just adds to the what was already a highly suspect record to begin with. Keep in mind, when Ruth Chepngetich ran 2:09 and change in the Chicago Marathon last fall, 2024, she did that after the record only a year before had been broken by 2 minutes. So the previous record was 2 minutes faster than anybody else had ever run. And then she ran 2 minutes faster than that, which was over 4 minutes faster than she herself had ever run in the marathon.
Yeah.
And she's not like new to the marathon. She's been doing this for years. This was her 15th marathon in terms of global competition. And so for such a significant improvement when she'd already been running in the super shoes, like it wasn't like her first super shoes marathon or something like that. There weren't any innovations that you could say directly contributed to that race. And so suddenly that happens. And then a few months later, not very long after, she is caught with a masking agent that hides other kinds of doping violations. Actually, the news was not out at the time, but Ruth Chepngetich was scheduled to run the London Marathon. And you recall she dropped out or withdrew like just about a week before, which was like really strange and not because of injury. Well, this is why. She had just been notified that she was going to, that they had a positive result and they were beginning investigations. And so she did a voluntary start to the provisional suspension at that point in time, knowing that it's a 2-year suspension. The voluntary start will start her earlier. And so then she'll be serving time as the concept goes, which almost never happens if someone believes that they're innocent. Like they fight it tooth and nail. She instead was caught and said, "Okay, let's start the suspension now." It's like, what? What is going on here?
And people will be wondering now, is the world record still going to stand? And there isn't anything right now that they have that could keep it from.
This is what World Athletics policy is. Anything that happened prior to a positive result test stands. And the only thing that would overthrow that or change that is if they tested an old sample and found something new in an old sample.
That, with better testing or
which actually happens quite a bit, or historically has happened quite a bit. But at the moment, it's very unlikely. Very unlikely. Although the Chicago Marathon themselves could do something like try to get her prize money back, because they have in the contract a condition that says If someone violates the contract, then they can ask for the money back, the race winnings. So that is possible, but unlikely. All right. Final note. Late bedtime study. You know what? Let's save this for later. We're just going to tease it. Late bedtime. Is it a good thing or a bad thing? More on that next time. Because right now, it's time for AI trivia. AI trivia. Okay, so we have our topic selector. We're going to use the random topic selector in order to pick, so that we don't have. Oh, this is gonna be super loud. I need to mute that. None of you want to hear that really loud spinner sound. And so we've got options. Our topic options are Diamond League history, World Athletics history, the history of the Irish distance running scene. Yeah, there's been a lot of interesting Irish things going on. The history of Australia's distance running scene. We have the USATF road circuit history, which could be interesting. And then I can't read that one. What does that say? It's upside down.
And it's yellow. Something ultra marathon.
Ultra marathoning. Okay. So these are our topic options today. If you want to submit a possible topic for AI trivia, you're welcome to do it. Just jump on the comments. If you listen on Spotify or YouTube, it is very easy to comment. And so you can comment on our show anytime. And you jump in the comment section and you say, hey, here's a topic you should play for AI trivia. And we might add it to our list.
We very well could.
All right. So the topic spinner is spinning and it's selecting. What we're going to do today is Ireland. You're really unenthused.
I scoffed at.
It'll be interesting.
It's too specific. I won't know the answers.
Maybe. I want to give it a try. Oh, wow. Well, we might decide that this is not the best way to go for us, but we'll see. We'll see. Okay, I don't know what this symbol is. This is a different symbol than the AI's given me in the past, but we're going to give it a try here and welcome our guest back to the show. Hey, we're back on with the A to Z Running podcast audience. Go ahead and say hello to our audience.
Hello again to the A to Z Running podcast audience. It's great to be back, and I'm excited to dive into more fun and interesting running trivia with all of you.
I feel like that was a passive-aggressive, I don't want to talk to you going on here from the AI. I'm kidding, AI, whatever your name is. So here's what we're going to do. Remember the game. We're going to ask you for some questions. I'll give you the topic in just a moment, and you're going to give us 4 possible correct answers, and we're going to guess the one that we think is correct. So,
in numbers.
Yeah, you please number them for us so that we know which one is which when we're guessing. All right, so our topic for trivia today is the history of distance running in the country Ireland. That's our topic. So if you can go ahead and give us our first trivia question.
Absolutely. That sounds like a fantastic topic. Here's your first question about the history of distance running in Ireland. Who was the first Irish athlete to win an Olympic gold medal in a distance running event? Here are your 4 options. 1, Romy Delaney. 2, Eamon Coughlin. 3, John Tracy. And 4, Sonia O'Sullivan. Good luck.
Sonia O'Sullivan, isn't she recent? Don't answer that. Okay. Do you got a guess?
I do. Yes.
You got a guess. Oh, we've already got guesses. Okay. Guess on the count of 3. 1, 2, 3. What's your guess?
3.
Oh no, it's 3. That's my guess also. We both guessed number 3. What was the correct answer?
You both had great guesses, but the correct answer is actually number 1, Ronnie Delaney. He won the gold medal in the 1500 meters at the 1956 Melbourne Olympics, making history for Ireland.
Melbourne, Andy. That's, of course, Melbourne. All right, okay, neither of us got that one. Go ahead and give us another one.
Absolutely. Let's see if this next one gets you both some points. Which Irish runner set a world record in the women's 2000 meters in 1994? Here are your options. 1, Sonia O'Sullivan. 2, Katharina McKiernan. 3, Mary Cullen. And 4, Fionnuala McCormack. Good luck.
Do you have a guess on the count of 3?
It's
1,
just a guess.
2, 3, go. Oh, no, you guessed the same one as me again. We both guessed number 3. What is the correct answer?
You two are in sync today. The correct answer is actually number 1, Sonia O'Sullivan. She set the world record in the women's 2,000 meters in 1994.
So Sonia O'Sullivan was the first name that I recognized so far that you were providing things. And so I was like, okay, but I thought she was more recent than that. So You got us on that. Okay, give us one more. Let's see if we can get a point today.
All right, let's give it another go. Which Irish distance runner is famous for winning the New York City Marathon 4 times in the 1990s? Here are your options. 1, Eamon Coughlin. 2, John Tracy. 3, Katharina McKinnon. And 4, Jerry Kiernan.
Do you have a guess? Okay, 1, 2, 3, go. John Tracy.
I said John Tracy too.
That's my guess. Okay, what's
Me
the answer?
too. My guess too.
Yep.
You both went with John Tracy, but the correct answer is actually Katharina McKinnon. She dominated the New York City Marathon in the late 90s. Great effort, though.
That is wonderful. Katharina McKinnon. Okay, go ahead and say farewell to our audience. Thank you.
Thanks so much for having me. It's always a blast chatting with you and the A to Z running audience. Until next time, take care and keep running strong. Hello.
All right, everybody.
How can we be so in sync and be losers together?
We all knew the wrong things as the result.
What?
So this is why I wanted to do the random topic thing, because we got to throw some topics out there that we are not ourselves saying, I know a lot about this.
But even with the topics that we do know stuff about, we still were getting some wrong.
Well,
so.
yeah, but not all of them. This time we got them all wrong.
One...
So the score remains, Zach has 9, Andy has 7. We have no winner yet. Remember, the winner is the first to 10 points, and the first to 10 points then has to be given some kind of obscure running gift with some kind of dollar limit we still haven't decided on. So more on that in the future because we haven't arrived there yet. But we've got a lot of interesting potential topics, and you need to share more with us, A to Z Running listeners. Yeah. Jump in the comments or send us a note directly and say, here's a topic you should add to the list.
Yeah, that'd be fun.
All right, that's it for now.
That's what we have for today.
That's what we have for today.
And we just love connecting with you, so feel free to do so on the places that you can. We want to create content that helps you. That's why we do this thing, is because we would love to help runners find consistency, to help them find balance, and to be patient through all of it.
If you're looking to make a change in your own running efforts, check out our coaching services at AtoZrunning.com, or just keep listening because we'll talk about a lot more things to come on this show starting next week.